On today's Newsmakers, actor Kevin Sorbo joins us to share his faith journey, how he got into Hollywood, and so much more. With no further ado, here is Kevin Sorbo. So Kevin Sorbo, people know you from all sorts of projects, Hercules, God's Not Dead, down the line, Let There Be Light. But let's kind of go back to the beginning. How did you make your way into Hollywood?
On a hope and a prayer. I grew up in a little town in Minnesota, about 20 miles outside of Minneapolis, beautiful Lake Minnetonka, my little town called Mound. We were home to Tonka toys. There's a trivia question, Lake Minnetonka, Tonka toys. And it was fifth grade, we took a field trip to the Guthrie Theater. So people in the theater world know of the Guthrie Theater. It started by Arlo Guthrie, a British actor, decades ago. And a lot of plays start there before they moved to Broadway, Lion King being one of them. And so we went to a field trip to go see The Merchant of Venice. It was Shakespeare. I was 11. I know what the hell they're saying. It was Shakespeare. But I was blown away by the actors on stage. And I told my mom, who was one of the chaperones on the way home, was sitting next to her on the bus, and she said, "So what do you think?" I said, "I'm going to be an actor." And she went, the mom pat on the leg, "That's nice, dear." And but it was there. The seed had been planted. But I was a jock, and all through junior high, high school, college. So you don't tell your buddies that you want to be in a theater, because those were the wussy guys. We made fun of those guys in junior high and high school, and yet I'd walk by Mr. G, that Mr. Gulbranson was a drama teacher, and I'd be looking in there going, "What are they doing in there?" And I kept thinking to myself, all the best looking girls are in drama, But it wasn't until I got to college, and I had a double major and business, but I took a minor in drama because I knew what I wanted to do. So I was flirting around with it and stuff like that. And I started doing a lot of commercial work. People don't realize Minneapolis and St. Paul's headquartered, a lot of big Best Buy, Target, 3M, Pillsbury, General Mills, Cargill. There's a lot of big companies. So I did a lot of commercial. I got a commercial agent. I shot a lot of commercials. So I got that all-important SAG card before I left for Hollywood. And so I had no problem. I had a lot of commercials under my belt. So I had no problem getting a commercial agent when I moved to LA. There was a segue in there. I joined a theater group in Dallas, Texas, and I had two buddies playing football down at SMU. And so I went down there, said, what the heck, I'll check them out. I'm staying there a year and a half. Well, look at these side tracks of my life. And then I meet this woman I fell in love with. She was a big time model, been modeling. She's like 14. She was like 19 when I met her. And I was 22. And she said, before you go to LA, just come and spend one summer in Italy with me. And I said, sure. Summer in Italy, why not? So I go to Milan, but who do I get discovered by? Gianni Versace. And Versace puts me in some of his shows, and all of a sudden I signed with an agency. I'm starting doing all these commercials.
So now you're modeling.
I'm modeling. It's something I wrote. I wasn't planning on going down because I'm 6'3". I was 225 back then. I was big. All these other model guys were 5'9". There were 40 regulars. I'm a 46 long, 38 regulars. And so, but I got all athletic stuff. So Germany absolutely loved me. So I used to work like crazy in Munich, and I shot 20. I ended up spending 3 months turned into 3.5 years.
Wow.
I lived in Milan, lived in Paris, lived in London, lived in Zurich.
Did the acting dream still kind of persist in the back of your mind?
Yeah. Well, when I was in Munich, we were there a year and a half. I formed a theater group, and we put on English-speaking plays when we were there, because my goal was still there. And I formed a 9-team basketball league as well, because I loved hoops, played in college. And so I stayed very busy there, had a blast doing it. And then it just got to a point I said, okay, I'm done. I've taken 5 years out of my life. I'm almost 27. I said, I got to move to LA. I got to LA. So I sent all my tapes. At this point, I had about 40 commercials in the bag. So I had no problem getting a commercial agent. And it was really like a personality test. I found out, you can't go online back in the 80s, but I found out through, the grapevine, these are the 3 best commercial agents. They all wanted to sign me because they already had the tapes and had the SAG card. So over the phone in Munich, I decided the one I wanted to go with. I get back home for Christmas time, and I get a call, and they say, we got a client that saw your tape. You're already down the last 3 guys, but they want to meet you in person before they book you. And I wasn't planning to go to LA that quickly, but they said, no, it's a big job. It pays very well. International commercial. And if it goes, they'll re-up it every year. And I said, okay. So I load up the old beat-up car, put all my life in there, said, go bye to my parents. I drive to LA, didn't have a place, so I stayed at the assistant of my agent's best friend's place in Santa Monica. So I rented a little room in there. I'm in LA 3 days. I meet these clients. I book it. Shoots in Sydney, Australia. So I go to Sydney. I'm on a plane within a week to Sydney, Australia. I shoot this commercial for 10 days, and I went, I've always wanted to come here. So I stayed for 8 months.
Wow.
I did 2 plays. and shot 7 commercials in 8 months. Lived on Bondi Beach. If people remember the 2000 Olympics, I lived right on the beach that had the volleyball for the Olympics. And it was a great apartment. The beach was right there. It was just, I loved it being in Australia. It was awesome. And my agent goes, when I called my agent and said, I'm staying, they flipped out. You just got here. And I said, I know, but you know, I've always wanted, I wrote a book report in this place when I was 12. I wanted to be
staying.
here. I want to see a koala. Then I finally go to LA. And everybody's an actor. So you can find out what acting classes to take, what not to take. And I said, I want to take the ones, because my dad was a school teacher, mom's nurse, but stay-at-home mom with 5 kids. I'm the 4th of 5. And my dad always said to all of us, go after what makes you uncomfortable. You'll grow with that. And I used to caddy in college. I used to caddy at this private country club. And he goes, we didn't have any money. I had a teacher's salary, 5 kids. And, you know, I closed my hand-me-downs to my brothers. You know, I had a paper out 7 years. And so, I mean, I learned about working hard. You know, 6 days a week, I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning, delivering 80 newspapers in Minnesota winters at 20 below zero. But I learned the value of hard work through my parents. So I studied with 3 different coaches over 6 years. 2 years with each one. My last coach was Roy London, who's since passed away. But in that class was Brad Pitt, Matthew Perry, Charlotte Ross. There was just amazing people in this class. And this is before any of our career really took off. I remember seeing Matthew Perry, rest in peace, do a scene. And I looked at Brad and I said, dude, this guy should be in a sitcom. His timing was so good. Well, a year later, he's on Friends, right? So, so I mean, really, that was kind of the road to get me to there, to get my first big break, obviously, with Hercules. But I can tell the story of that if you want to hear that too.
Well, you know, what was the point for you where you realized, okay, this is going from a dream to a reality. This is something that is going to be big in my life.
I realized how fortunate I was, but one of my best friends, Mark, that I've known since we were 2.5 years old.
Wow.
His dad was a teacher. Mine was. We lived right across the street. We played football, basketball, you know, baseball. All of us played the sports through school together. He said, Sorbs, remember, you're a business major. It's called show business, not show. And I've always remember that. So I went out there and I treated it like a business. I mean, I was on top of my agents. I got the breakdown service where through the fax, I would get all the information of okay, these are what they're filming right now. This is what they're looking for. And I'd call my agent, hey, why am I not for this role? I bugged them. So I bugging them. I know I bugged them. They go, Kevin, I got 100 other clients. I said, do you think those clients give a crap about me?
Right. You care about
I said, let me get in the door and get rejected. Let me have the chance to get rejected. That's really what my mentality was. And I was one of the few guys I know in Hollywood that never had to bartend or sell cars or wait tables. Never had to. I was very fortunate. I shot over 150 commercials in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, I stayed very busy. And it was I got lucky. I met a guy within the first couple of months living in Santa Monica that owned 3 buildings in Santa Monica apartment complexes. So I got in at rent control. I'm blocks from Gold's Gym, which is my second home. I'm blocks from the beach. For a guy in his late 20s, I was in my late 20s by now. I was 27 going on 28 when I finally get there.
You were living your best life
and
at that point.
Yeah, and I just busted my butt. And I had 2 pilots I did back in 91 and 92 that I got the lead in. So I knew things were starting to happen. If I was going to Universal now, I was able to park next to Spielberg and going to meet him for Sequest. I mean, I knew that I was going to get close. Commercial-wise, I know it's coming to an end when the breakdown service said, we're looking for a Kevin Sorbo type. So I figured, they're getting tired of me making these commercials now. So my agent said, yeah, that's not a good sign when they say that. We want someone like him, but not him anymore. So, I knew the 2 pilots I did for CBS and ABC, I knew when I got the lead, that things were starting to happen. Because I remember the story of Tom Selleck doing 6 different leads and pilots before he got Magnum. So he went through the frustration of that all. And a quick lesson of what I learned in college, I was going to say, I caddied at the private, I love golf, I caddied at this private country club. All these guys, big money. It was a big money club. And they're, every guy from 30 to 80 that I caddied for, I said, how did you become successful? Every one of them said, oh, I failed. And by the way, Kevin, I failed again. And then I failed again. Remember a guy telling me one, he goes, yeah, I was a 10-year overnight success. And I remember that. And he said, use failure as a positive. You're always going to get rejected in life. You know, God never promised anybody an easy life, and our governments certainly now don't promise an easy life. So I use failure as a positive and no as a positive. I got to a point where I wasn't getting in my car, which every actor does this, because when I talk to acting classes, they laugh when I say it. I said, I know you guys get in your car, you're on the 405 or the 101, and you start chewing on your steering wheel. I go, why did I do it that way? And I said, but everybody does that. Get to a point that walk out of there. They didn't pick me, it's their fault, it's their loss. And that was huge for me to make me just calm down and let things happen. I knew something was going to happen.
So I want to come back more into Hercules and Hollywood in
Sure.
a moment, but I also want to go back to your childhood on faith, because your journey on faith, obviously people see you now, you're outspoken, you talk about your faith views, cultural views. Where was the faith rooting? When did that start for you?
At birth, my parents were very devoted Christians. My mom's still alive at 92. My father passed 12 years ago. My best friend, he was the best man at my wedding, my dad. I miss him every day. They had St. John's Lutheran Church, typical Norwegian kid. I'm second generation from Norway. I go to the Lutheran Church. I always laughed at them because they said, why would you leave Norway, my great-grandparents, and move to a place in America that's just as cold? You couldn't settle down a little in Florida. But it was always there for me, always there for me. And our main pastor, Pastor Sanders, scared the hell out of me. I mean, this guy was fire and brimstone, breathing's a sin. I mean, this guy was scared of him. And it wasn't until Pastor Lee came along. Everything with him, we had a place called The Room. The Room was, it was two classes separated by a curtain. They would open it up. We had all beat up old couches and, chairs and stuff. And it was all for the teenagers. It was all for 13 to 17-year-olds of the church. And Wednesday nights was The Room, starting at 8 o'clock, 8 to 10. And we'd hang out. He would tell stories, but he'd bring the Bible into our current world. It wasn't like, let's go back to that, and but he would bring those stories into how it affects us in today's world. And he was just really cool. And when I was 13, we took a field trip to the St. Paul Fairgrounds with the Reverend Billy Graham. And I told this story in the Larry King Show, by the way. And I said, it was a hot August night. There was like 300,000 people there outside. It was amazing. Full moon was out, and Billy Graham was like incredible, even though he's a mile away on the stage, the big screen set up. And I did something I normally wouldn't do. And he said, at the end, I got people up here if you want to come up and, talk, pray, whatever. And I went up. I remember my buddy Jeff goes, where are you going? I said, I got to go up. I don't know why. Sat down in the grass with this guy. He was like 35, so he's like a really old guy to me, 13 years old. And we were just sitting there talking. And all of a sudden, a hand goes on my head, and I turned around, and it was Billy Graham. And he had his security guys with him, of course. But his head was perfectly behind the full moon. So like, oh, these rays coming out of his head. And I get goosebumps telling it. It was just, I told that story, and I had a call from Larry Ross. I think you know Larry.
Yes, yeah.
And he runs a lot of the stuff for Billy Graham. And Larry said, hey, we saw the story. They're doing 100 Chicken Soup for the Soul, 101 stories of people have been affected by Pastor.
And this is a couple decades later.
Oh, this is after Hercules was
done.
I told this story. This is probably back in 2005 or something. I told this story on Larry King. And so they said, the Reverend loves your story. And would you be one of the 101 stories? Are you kidding me? So I wrote that story. Well, then they called me up. And the only time they ever did a hardcover book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, is always paperback. And so they called me up and they said, he loves the movies you're doing. He loves the things that you got going out there. Would you mind doing the publicity? Larry said, we'll take care of everything. We'll fly you around. I said, heck yeah. So I got to fly around and stuff. It's really cool. I've become good friends with Franklin Graham ever since then. So that was kind of an important time in my life. Sure, in the later teenage years, in my 20s, I did a lot of stupid things, but I never went away from my faith. I never had that crisis where I didn't believe in God or believe in Jesus. Never really happened for me.
Did you feel a pull away from faith? Coming into Hollywood, how did you balance that?
I never really felt a pull away from faith in Hollywood. I knew that where the industry is and the secularism of it and stuff like that, but I never, if conversation came up on the set, I was never one to back down from it, whether it's political or whether it's religious, didn't matter to me. But back then, you didn't get the kickback you're getting back today, which is just crazy. The hate that comes out now in the world. And it just shows you how far we've just fallen, I think, as human beings. I mean, it's amazing to me because I don't harbor that kind of anger and hate to someone who has a different political point of view or different religious point of view.
Do you feel though for yourself, because you were always open about it,
sure,
now being open about it today, you're saying it's different. Do you feel it impacted you?
Oh, no question impacted me. I mean, my agent and manager called me in about 10, 12 years ago. And I felt like it was an intervention. They said, we can't work with you anymore. And I said, why? Well, the stuff you're putting on Facebook. I go, what do you mean stuff? I'm not putting any hate out there. Yeah, but you got people in this industry that don't like Christians. They don't like, in fact, if you're conservative, it's apparently both those things are like you're a double leper in Hollywood. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. And I said, fine. I should have been angry about it. But I went, okay. And that's when my wife and I said, let's just form Sorbo Studios. Let's try to hopefully raise our own money for our own movies. And it's just snowballed now for me, where a lot of other independent people come to me that are, maybe you can say, like-minded, I guess. But I've really, the last 10 years, 11 years, mostly family-friendly. Doesn't have to be faith-based, but it's got to have good morals. I mean, if I look at Hercules, here's a mythological show that the writers put in really good moral values for a mythology, not biblical type show. And that came through the letters we got from kids. I mean, by season 3, we were in 176 countries, the most watched TV show in the world. We had 1,000+ letters that week coming in down to New Zealand where I was filming. And the things you get from kids saying, I'm stopped being a bully because of your show. Or I like the fact that I can talk my way out of trouble. I don't have to look for trouble. I mean, it's amazing. Every movie I've been doing since the Hercules years, especially in the last 15 years, I get a stunt guy. Hey, I became a stunt guy because of you. Hey, I worked out because of you. I wanted, and it's just amazing to me. And it shows you, like Walt Disney said back in the 50s, movies and television will influence our youth. I think Walt isn't happy what Disney's doing right now, because he's completely right in that, because it can be used for good, it can be used for evil, just like the internet. The internet's the Wild West. And it's crazy what's out there, but there are wonderful things about technology as well. I'm not going to knock that. But unfortunately, in today's world, there's a lot of unhappiness, a lot of unhappy people. And they only get their happiness attacking you or attacking me. And that's unfortunate.
Well, let me ask you about that too, because how can an industry bent on diversity so much in so many different ways, right? It's constant discussion about diversity, not value one of the most important types of diversity, ideological diversity. Why? Why is it this way?
Because we're insane. It's crazy. You look what the airline, look what United's doing. I mean, the CEO of United is dressing in drag. And he's talking about, we're going to have the most diverse people flying planes. And I go, how about the best pilots flying the planes? I don't care what faith is or color is. If I've got a business, I want to hire the best people, period. I mean, it's crazy what we're doing right now. I just read an article. They want to redo It's a Wonderful Life, and they want to redo The Wizard of Oz. But they want to put their people in it, And I'm going, why would you take two? It's like, I heard rumors they were going to redo Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Leave that movie alone. I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening right now, but the world is absolutely nuts.
Well, you talked about your solution. You've got Sorbo Studios. You've been making movies. People are casting you in family-friendly faith movies. You're making them. I go back to 2014. God's Not Dead. That was really the start of the resurgence, and you were at really the forefront of a lot of that. And you picked up that mantle. What has it been like to sort of watch The Sound of Freedom, all these other movies, including what you've done, have so much success?
Well, we knew God's Not Dead was a good movie. It was a great script. We didn't know it was going to do what it did. I mean, they were hoping to make $10 million in theaters. They made $11 million opening weekend. And that movie went on, $2 million budget, made $140 million with everything. Theatrical, streaming, DVDs, merchandise. It's just crazy what that movie did. But that's what, I've done better movies since. But without that word of mouth, without that P&A money, that's so important, because Hollywood does $300 million Thor, Spider-Man movies, right? Avengers, whatever, Galaxy, whatever. They put $100 million to promote these movies.
Yeah.
They got to make $800 million to break even, but they're making $2 billion worldwide, so they keep making them. Even though I'm getting tired of them, because it's
a lot of the same thing.
It's 70%, just CGI. They're not. There's no character development where you care about these characters that way you would with. I call them actors' scripts. I think my first really unapologetically faith-based movie was What If, and What If's written by the Chuck and Carrie, the same guys who did God's Not Dead. In my book, much better movie than God's Not Dead. Yet nobody knows about it.
It's a great film.
Dallas Jenkins directed it.
Yeah. Way
before The Chosen even started. John Ratzenberger is hilarious, and that's this curmudgeon angel. Christy Swanson as the wife that was and wasn't. It's a reverse It's a Wonderful Life. I love that movie. I still get emails weekly from people through Sorbo Studios going, oh, I found this movie you did. It's so good. I'm going, yeah, I did it 12 years ago. So it's like, how do you get these things out there I wish it's frustrating you don't have that kind of money behind it to do the promotion on it.
Because that's the biggest piece once it's
No
done,
question.
obviously. is
No,
getting it out.
without that P&A money, you look at Sound of Freedom. I mean, they shot it for like 15 million, but they put a lot of money in P&A. That needed to get like 40, 50 million even break even. But they got the best press possible when Hollywood came out and started bashing it.
Yes, it helped.
Hollywood's basically saying, well, we're for trafficking sex kids. We want sex with 7-year-old
It was
kids.
a very strange reaction.
It was a weird
to watch
reaction.
The attacks on the
So
that
everybody on both sides of the political aisle, the majority of people are against sex trafficking children.
Right.
So they said, well, screw you, Hollywood. We're all going to go see the movie. So it was the best advertising possible.
It was. I mean, what do you think that shows that these movies, when you do put publicity and money behind them, that they perform, and yet Hollywood has ignored them for so long?
I did a movie called Let There Be Light that my wife wrote. I directed it, did very well in theaters. I get a call Monday. We opened, here's a $3 million movie up against Thor Ragnarok, a $300 million movie, and we opened number 2 per screen average. So Monday, after opening box office, I get a call from Netflix saying, hey, we loved that movie. We love the fact that you have such a huge following in that faith world. We want to open an inspirational division here at Netflix. I have 4 meetings over the next like 3-4 months with these guys. Ultimately, they did nothing. And I look at it, even my last meeting, I looked at this room of 12 very powerful people from Netflix and said, I don't get it, why your ideology is so hateful towards someone like me, being a Christian conservative. And I have no problem with you guys if you're an atheist, whether you're, whatever. I said, I don't get why you're a capitalist business. You can scream about socialism all you want. It's all about making money. And there's 80 million homes that want the product I do. And yet you don't want to go forward and at least give this a try for a year to do a couple movies and maybe a TV series. I don't get it.
Did they give you an explanation?
No. But I could tell half the people in the room agreed with me, but they got to keep their mouth shut. They got to. It's like in the network world. It's always really up to the president that's going to decide, and all the people around them. It reminds. If people remember the Bewitched series, and you had Larry, who was the boss of Darren Stevens, who was always like negative, and you go, well, I think that's crazy, and then the client goes, I love it. Why do you think it's crazy? We didn't tell you this idea earlier. There's always a way, and they do that in the networks where they sit around. And everybody goes, I don't know, until the president goes, I like it. Hey, I like it too. Then they all say, because everybody's afraid of losing their job. Because every time there's a change in any of the studios, they fire everybody. And that new guy comes and brings his own people.
But that brings me back to you too, because many times you could have made a decision. When your agent called you 12 years ago, you could have said, all right, I'm going to stop tweeting and Facebooking. I'm going to stop sharing my thoughts.
Stop telling the truth. They're not angry. I wasn't attacking. I could have.
Why didn't you?
Sam warned me about it because I just got tired of it. I get tired of the ridiculous. I thought it was just funny. I was never a Hollywood guy. I'm not a Hollywood guy. I'm a small town dude that just loves the business I'm in. My best friends are guys I've known since grade school. To this day, we get together every year. They'll be coming here for Super Bowl, so they can get the heck out of Minnesota where it's 16 below. They'll land here, it's 82 degrees. So, it's...
Truth is more important.
Yeah, and I think that because it didn't happen overnight for me, and I wasn't planning it to happen overnight, but I always believed it would happen for me in one way or another. It sucks that I can't be up for anything on networks or cable anymore. They have that much hate. They don't want to work with me. And it cracks me up. John Schneider's got the same story. Dean Cain, all these guys, because they speak up and they're not afraid to speak up.
Yeah, just doesn't seem very diverse to me. So
No, it's not. Well, it's politics and everything. It really is, and it's unfortunate. But I don't know. I've had people say that they wouldn't work with me because I'm a Christian or even a conservative.
They've openly said that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had a couple movies that these people. Kevin's. Oh, I'm not going to be in that movie.
But being canceled doesn't bother you because you're out there doing your own thing now.
Doing my own thing.
And creating content that people love. One other thing I want to ask you about.
Well, I'm doing movies that have love and hope and, faith and freedom and laughter. I mean, who wants to watch that?
I remember Glenn Beck used to say, stories of hope and courage where the good guys win. That was sort of his framing of this kind of content. And it's powerful. Now, you also have been very open. You wrote a book years ago about your experience. You had a near-death experience and really serious aneurysm, strokes.
Yeah.
Let's just talk a little bit about that. Take us through what happened.
It was into season 5 on Hercules. I was doing 90% of my own stunts because my ego said that I could, and I absolutely loved it though. My stunt guys were awesome. They all went on to work on Lord of the Rings and all these Spider-Man and Aquaman and stuff. These guys were phenomenal. My whole crew from Andromeda, from Hercules down in New Zealand went on to work on all those Lord of the Ring movies and Hobbits. And it was into season 5. My arm was killing me. I couldn't figure what was going on. It's come back to the States, and I was doing publicity on Kull the Conqueror, my first big budget movie, a $30 million movie for Universal that we shot in Slovakia and Croatia. And Kull is the father of Conan in the book series. And so I'm on Letterman, Leno, talk shows. I'm up in Boston doing a bunch of local television and radios there. And this arm felt like it was on fire. I could barely lift it up. It was killing me. They sent a doctor to my hotel room. His name was Dr. Dye. So D-Y-E, but still
I would change
your bloody name to your mother's maiden name. I don't care. And so he says, you better get it checked out. I think it's cardiovascular. So I get back to see my doctor in LA, finds a lump way up here in my left subclavicle, and he says, we got to do a biopsy on that. That kind of freaked me out. Before the biopsy, I went to see my chiropractor in Santa Monica. I've been seeing him 8 years. And I'm laying on the table, a voice in my head says, don't let him crack your neck. What's weird, he's never cracked my neck. So why is his voice? Don't let him crack your neck. He's this voice in my head.
Had you ever experienced a voice like that before?
No. I have, but I think people call it a gut feeling or something. Yeah. Don't walk down that alley at 3 in the morning, and then you walk this way. And I'm going, that's weird. He's never cracked my neck because I don't like my neck cracked. Any new chiropractor, I tell him the first thing I say before consultation, never crack my neck. Why? Because I don't like it. Just don't do it. Okay. Don't let him crack your neck. And I'm arguing with the voice. Why he cracks my neck? But that ended up being an aneurysm that for months been spitting blood clots down my arm, suffocating the flow into my hand and my fingers. That's why everything was just hurting weird. That crack, because it was so close to the artery feeding the brain, I suffered 4 strokes. Spent the next 4 months learning how to walk again, learning to balance again, learning how to talk again. I still have a 10% loss of vision in both eyes, so most of that has come back. Wow. It took me 3 years to fully recover. Didn't want to write the book. My wife bugged me to write the book. She goes, Kevin, you don't realize you're playing Hercules. You were 6'3", 225.
Strongest guy in the world.
Body fat. You were in great shape. And you still got sick. Something that could have killed you immediately or put you in a wheelchair the rest of your life. And so I wrote the book. It's called True Strength, My Journey from Hercules, a Mere Mortal, How Nearly Dying Saved My Life. Well, all of a sudden I'm going out and I'm doing all these book signings. And then people read the book. Hey, would you come speak to this group of doctors or group of nurses or the medical field? Because it was, dealt with that. But my faith is in there and my history, my life is in there. And then they said, well, you're conservative. Would you speak at this group? Oh, by the way, you're a Christian. Are you pro-life? I said, of course I'm pro-life. So at most of speaking, I do about 15 speaking events a year. Half are pro-life events now.
Wow.
And it's been a total godsend, something I never thought would happen. I mean, it opened up a whole different avenue to me to do public speaking. Something was never on my agenda. I just wanted to act and direct.
And sharing your faith in ways you never would have.
But now it's been incredible. And Sam and I did a follow-up book 2 years ago called True Faith, which deals with everything we had to go through as well as a couple, when the couples can relate, because nothing's ever perfect. There's always compromise, there's always this, and how do you get through this when you reach? So really, the whole book is really about the obstacles we hit in life, because like we said, God never promised anybody a perfect life. How do you react to that? Do you blame God? Do you blame God you don't believe him? Because I see people do that too.
Yeah.
Do you blame family, friends, the world? And I say, cue Michael Jackson's song, The Man in the Mirror, look in the mirror, and there's your problem. And Sam gave me a mantra. So 2 things. One, she gave me a mantra every morning when I'd crawl out of bed just to get the day going, because it sucked. The first 2 years sucked. I mean, I hated it. And I think her and my strong will and my faith helped me get through. But she said, look in the mirror and say, I'm getting better, I'm getting stronger, and say it out loud till you believe it for the day. Second thing was, whenever I got down, the New York or Pittsburgh girl that I married would say, Kevin, it happened, what are you going to do about it? And you're right. You can whine and cry, or you can do something about it. So I did 10 times more than what the physiotherapist, doctors told me to do in my recovery. I pushed myself to get better, and I did so much more.
But you would never know. I mean,
I still have balance issues that most people wouldn't be able to see. I see it, and I can feel it, and I know it. I get dizzy spells now and then. But it sucked. It sucked. The last 2 years of Hercules sucked for me, and I loved being on that show. The first 5 years were the best of my life in terms of just the fun, and all of a sudden I could barely be on the set anymore. I went from a 14-hour workday to 1 hour a day just to let's shoot Kevin really quick, a couple scenes. So we shot 10-day episodes, so I would be in 20 scenes still. We did a lot of stunt casting, but it was still like trying to keep the show going.
Yeah, wow. And you see how God worked through that, telling your story though, moving you into Sorbo Studios, all you're doing.
Yeah.
That's all for today's Newsmakers. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the show. We'll see you then.